Hey guys, Andy's here. Today I wanted to make my long-awaited thoughts and opinion review on the Born to Elite Pump It Up pads. Now, before we get started with this, I'm just going to give a general disclaimer. This is going to be very loose formatting. I'm going to probably ramble on and off, but I'm going to try my best to be concise as much as I can. My review won't be fully objective. Like, a lot of it will be subjective. I will have different point of views and reviews from other people who I've talked to with their own Born to Elite experiences. So, Born to Elite is essentially a Chinese brand that have recently came out of the woodwork. I think they came out like maybe last year of summer, where they make pads, replica pads, or even imports of varying degrees of quality. I've seen DDR reviews of this back in August, and overall it was definitely a brand to consider. This is not going to be talking about DDR, there's already reviews out there, but this one's just a review to pump it up. So, when you order this pad, Born to Elite has two options. You have USB model, which is basically their replica, as you can see here, their replica pads, and they're gonna have the distinguishing feature where they have a USB-C type. Afterwards, you have their other option being the actual official Andamiro LX pads. These are direct imports from Korea, and roughly the price difference is around like 400. In my opinion, without a doubt, you should absolutely purchase, because you're already spending a good amount of money, to invest a little bit more for the Korea imports. For what it's worth, there's definitely some concerns.
Stop! I've played these games before!
Shout out to user Heita, who had previously purchased the Pump It Up replica pads. As you can see, the panels already look a little different. These are replica panels, and I know this because if you look at their Twitter, they have these switch frames where they are custom making their own switch frames. It's very subtle, but that is not what the official stomp looks like, I'm pretty sure. From my naked eye. It's a little different actually. Maybe I'm wrong. The internals themselves they're formatted similarly to an arcade pad, but they're not necessarily the same. There's spacers missing on the L brackets, causing panels to stick. As you can see, this divot here it's not countersunk. Two of the bars are not identical, they're bent, they have inconsistent paint jobs. The bar bends are crazy, the bar welds are different. Look at this.
Huh?
If you're paying practically 4K by the end of shipping, this is crazy to me. Gaps, weirdness, there's rust inside, wood boards to mount the PCBs. I mean, this is the whole list you really need. Look at this list. I can't even talk about it because he already says everything you really need, honestly. There's a lot of even technical things I don't really know about to talk about. At least the replica pads have everything you kind of need. So remember, this USB version is the replica. This is the official. You gotta make sure to get the official version from Korea. Anyways, that being said, replicas can come in all different shapes and sizes. That person might have had some quality concerns, but it really depends on what you're trying to do with these pads and like what your skill level is, because for some people, it might be fine enough for intermediate play. Replica pads could be useful for someone who doesn't really know the in and outs of like hardware modding. It could be very simple because from apparently what I've talked to them about, the stock sensitivity that comes with these are already pre-modded to be pretty sensitive. That's technically different from what the other person said on Discord, but I'm not entirely sure. It could come differently. I have another friend who reached out to me, shout out to Apex, and they also got the replica pads. This is I'm playing Swiftronic at 1.1. You can make your own judgment and see if you think the sensitivity looks good. I mean, they are hitting pretty center on for most of these panels, minus the red and blues. But yeah, this is what it will look like. I don't think the panels are completely flush, but definitely closer to what I'm used to. Yeah, for them, it's working out great. But here is what I'm gonna suggest, okay? The replica pads are, for what I've seen, decent. They don't use official Andamiro sensors. They use like some third-party type of sensors, I'm pretty sure. You could probably still use similar pad mods to create a pretty decent experience still. But here's my recommendation. You purchase the official Andamiro LX pads. You can either play with Pump It Up unofficial simulators, or you can get like official hardware, mix, and get it like an MK. If for someone who isn't very tech savvy, or someone who doesn't really know like the hardware side of the game, I would go with the first option being playing with simulator. Born to Elite already has connections with Andamiro, it seems like, because if you look at I mean, look, they have the intramural sensors, they have official PCB boards from them. I have no idea what those are. And you have the dongle tubes with the cords and everything you need. Yeah, I don't really need to say more. They have connections.
Have you ever farted a little too hard?
This is now where my story comes into play with my friend Derm, and also another avid player, K-Moist, who's also purchased these pads. And from what I've seen, they are the real deal. I have a lot of DMs of Derm just going through the setting up process of this. I can't really talk too much about simulators, but once you do, you can get a pad to PC, get the pump it up version, and by the way, this is going to cost you another like $150 because you would have to buy two of these for each of your dance pads. Or what you would have to do is, you see this top metal part, you would unscrew it, and then there's your PCB board, and then you would swap them. Another very popular option in the community is to stack a dance pad IO, being this and this. They are typically out of stock, but you can just reach out to them then. Both of these options are good. I personally went with this one because at the time it was available and it was just the most convenient for me. This whole process took around 1.5 weeks. This was a very new process for me, but I guess it's kind of fun to just retrospect and just show you guys the whole process that went into this. Let's just check it out together. All right, we've opened up the first frame, and now we were having problems with this PCB board of just trying to take out the stuff. It's so stiff. We just wiggled it out and eventually forced it out. That is not a good practice. Eventually, we got the thing out with these the power, the signal, and the signal out. And then the left, the center, and the right. All of these 5 cords. We unscrewed the sides that previously mounted the board. Then we put, we just replugged it in. Again, in your simulator, you can just configure it to whatever you want. There is a little tube on the side here. Pad to PC provide an AC adapter where you would take the cord, put it through the tube, and then come out on the other side, plug that in. And all you need is this is a micro USB cable, so I would recommend at least getting a 10 feet cable or longer, assembling more, taking out the original, kind of gutting out the official ports, little leather thing. Yeah, we are supposed to cut these little zip ties. Fun fact, I actually didn't cut them fully enough, and one time I passed a bar, like I was moving past it, and I cut my leg really hard, so definitely get rid of the zip ties if you want to avoid an injury. And then you can just move it to the side on the railing here, or you can just flat out remove it. It's up to personal preference. All right, this is where we had another issue. Maybe someone can enlighten me. We have bolts, which are basically secure in place. It also came with washers, 2 types of washers. The ones that are flat and the ones that are like bendy. Either way, the bolts just wouldn't fit into our pad for some reason. And apparently this is a common issue with LXs, where the paint goes into the hole. This is not at the fault of Born to Elite, rather Andamuro's kind of poor quality control. And we can't actually put the bars fully in. We only have like 4 bolts out of like the 9 holes, which kind of sucks. This is us just also not knowing how washers work. I know Derm, he had to go to like Home Depot a bunch of times to get different bolts. I don't claim to know everything. I'm just as like blind to this. I'm gonna put a lot of resources in the description, basically helping you guys out. Yeah, they provided, I think out of the box we bought these silver ones, but then afterwards on Amazon we had to buy different ones. Definitely buy bolts that you can actually use a hex. Stock LX is terrible. Oh my god, it is actually unplayable. This is me. You can see that! I barely passed an S12. You definitely need to modify these. Yeah, we eventually got it working. Yippee. For Pat Derm's setup at the time, you can see the bracket joint is up here. We didn't put them in because he constantly has guests down here, so we didn't want to like move the pads constantly. So we didn't connect the joint bracket yet. Next was the legs and the casters. Oh my god. Long story short, we just couldn't figure this out. And it's not even about the carpet, it's like some of the legs would work differently. Like 2 of the legs you could like adjust, and 2 of them was like for moving. But it was also like each pad was inconsistent. Like one of the pads was like one side, you could like I know pads in Korea do this too, where they just get rid of the legs and the casters. Additionally, another option you have out there is to just simply purchase something like this. Some places in Korea, like, let's say like Fafem's area, they have like this rubber thing down here. There's a lot of options out there. For example, Rubber King. This is the size. I've seen people in Aero Eclipse talk about this. So yeah, I wouldn't say your experience with getting these pads are going to be as daunting as me and Dermot's, because we just went from everything from scratch. But there's a lot of connections and resources of people that can help you out. I was very happy to have Golf Ball and Vane guide us, kind of mentoring us, just kind of getting through the process for our very first time of playing through this. Yeah, I was just trying to measure it, and it just didn't really work out, unfortunately. We just took out the stuff eventually. Pad modding time. As you can see, it was getting there. We originally tried using the 4199 pad modding method. It worked until it didn't, because we added way too much Gorilla Tape, and then it just caused issues later on. You can see me doing the layers of tape. Again, it was fine for what it was. Brackets were a little inconsistent. There were times where the pads would get stuck. Recently, Derm has modified the pads to work with the J. Kim Korea style. Apparently it's working out great for him. I haven't seen gameplay or played on the pads yet, but yeah. And then the rest is history. We got the pads decently working. Of course, this is what the J. Kim mod looks like. This is Dermot going goofy odd mode. Apparently it's good. You know, that was our experience anyways. I was talking to K-Moist. How your pads are gonna very likely come like in a little crate box like this. Everything's gonna have film, and then eventually, once you get it set up, you know, again, we had the exact same pads, so I just wanted to fact check whether or not we had legit pads. For K-Moist, all of their bar screws went in with like 0 effort. He hand tied them and then used a hex wrench. So maybe me and Dermot just got unlucky with our quality control. That is essentially it. The insides are gonna look like this. The panels are also like this, interesting. I don't know, can someone double check with me? Are LX panels like this? I always thought both sides were transparent. I could be completely wrong though, but it has like this it looks like a little sticker. But yeah, everything is good. It's $2,800. This is not a faint of the heart pad alternative. However, comparing to the other options being Dance Fit Gaming and Columbia pads, I mean, these are official, and you're paying like an extra maybe like 1,000 in comparison. I would personally recommend the Born to Elite. There's some things that I wish were a little bit more clear at the time. I think they're still figuring out some things logistically and just like as a business as a whole. I don't recall their communication with Dermot to be very great either. Like they didn't even give him like a shipping label, maybe a language barrier. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. It's great that we have more pad options in the first place, and even if you get replica pads, it should be a pretty good experience. Getting the LX pads, it will support actual mixes with the hardware. You would obviously just need to supply it with an MK. That's a whole nother can of worms that I'm not even too familiar and well versed into. Otherwise, if you're not too tech savvy, you can get plenty of the IO options I've listed previously. Swap out the boards and just play with your simulators and have a good time.